Hey guys, it's Kim here, and I'm here with Andreas, who is the Senior Gameplay Designer on Wolfenstein New Order. Hello.
Hello, Kim.
And so I've just had hands-on with Wolfenstein New Order, and it is so much fun. Like, I had so much fun playing it. So really nice, easy first question. What is Wolfenstein the New Order?
First I want to say I'm really glad you liked it. Wolfenstein the New Order is a story-driven, first-person action adventure taking place in the 1960s in an alternate history setting where the Nazis won World War II. It's about exploring the world of the New Order and exploring what it would mean to live in that sort of setting, what it would mean for the people who were oppressed, but also for the people who kind of would thrive in an environment like that.
And so you mentioned it's in an alternate reality. How come you guys decided to do that and you know, not stick to the kind of what actually happened in World War II?
Wolfenstein 3D, which is the first game in the series, kind of started the whole thing of an alternate history when you got to kill Hitler. That changed everything. So we took that concept and ran with it, and you know, setting it in an alternate history setting and moving it to the 1960s has given us a lot of room to play with different concepts and ideas, like you know, the retro sci-fi theme. And because the adventure part of our game is so important, we've gotten a lot of room to play with that as well in a setting like that.
I mean, the first thing that was immediately obvious to me was that the previous Wolfenstein games, this was quite serious. It was quite typical for an FPS in that you had regenerating health, and you know, it was fairly standard stuff. But the first thing I noticed in this is we're back to kind of having a counter for health, at which you could pick up kind of items that bumped you up, like to overcharge, so you could get like 120 plus health and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's sort of gone back in essence to the kind of, you know, Wolfenstein 3D and Doom and all that kind of thing, where it's more like you actually have a counter. How come you guys decided to do that?
So it's a general theme of how we wanted to make this game. It's about taking the best of old school design and taking the best of modern day school design and kind of merge those together to a cohesive whole. So the health system is one example of that. You have, as you said, like the health 100 armor as resources that you need to manage. You need to be real careful in combat, because each fight you're not going to have your health regen back, so you need to actually be careful and try to find enough health and make sure you don't lose too much health. But to give the player a fighting chance when he's really hurt, we give him a little bit of regen. So if you're down to, say, 5 health points, we regen it back to just 20. So you're still really hurt, you have really still screwed up that fight and really need to face the consequence of doing that, but we still give you a fighting chance to continue the fight.
The other thing that I really loved about the demo that I just played was how crazy the weaponry is, and literally straight away you're given double assault rifles, and I know later on you get double shotguns as well and stuff like that. Like, and I absolutely love that. And again, was that kind of a return to the older way of Wolfenstein, to kind of just give you crazy weapons and just go, you know what, just go have fun with it.
The Wolfenstein series kind of gives us license to do those sort of things. You can give the player almost any kind of weapon. You can dual wield anything, because we don't need to be, you know, very accurate or very scientific about things. You know, we still try to create a believable world that the player can explore, but we allow ourselves to be creative within that setting. So it's so much fun to dual wield, so why not let the player dual wield pretty much anything, you know?
And so because we have this sort of almost sci-fi kind of Nazis experimenting with technology and stuff like that, will we see any weapons beyond the usual kind of rifles, shotguns, that kind of thing? Any crazy sci-fi things in there?
Of course. I mean, this is a setting that we like to call a retro sci-fi setting. So it's the idea of what the people in the 1960s believed future technology would be like. So it's their sci-fi, it's retro sci-fi. So we take a lot of our weaponry and environments and enemies from that. So you have all kinds of crazy laser weapons, laser miniguns, laser sniper rifles, all kinds of enemies, you know, the tank dog, the kind of cyborg humans, the failed human experiments, all those sort of things we play a lot with.
What's the craziest weapon in the game?
I'm not sure if it's the craziest, but the most fun, I think, is the so-called Laserkraftwerk, which is like laser weapon that kind of changes because you find upgrades to it. So you can add upgrades to it, and it changes and it becomes more versatile. It's not just a change that makes it into something else. It becomes like a toolbox of tactical choices you have in combat. So the player can use that in different ways. It's something we want to do. We want to allow the player to be creative in combat encounters. So with the Laserkraftwerk, later in the game you will be able to cut through metal surfaces with your laser. And that means that not only does that allow you to explore the levels more, because you can cut through certain places that you won't get through otherwise, but you can also use it in combat, like, for example, if you hide behind a cover being shot at, you could probably cut a hole through that cover and shoot through your own little hole, your little peek hole, and just snipe people from there. And you can also do that with the enemy's cover. You know, he's hiding behind his cover, thinking he's safe, and you just cut a hole through his cover and shoot him right through it. So that's a lot of fun. That's probably my favorite.
That sounds brilliant. And earlier you mentioned tank dogs and stuff like that, and that was another thing. Like literally about 10 minutes into the demo, I got jumped on by a robo dog, and then we saw also like a kind of mecha soldier as well, like kind of one of the souped up soldiers. So yeah, we'll be seeing loads and loads of weird and almost quite grotesque enemies.
They're fairly grotesque, and there is a theme of experimenting on people. Which unfortunately was something the Nazis did, but this is a theme we do have in the game. That it is an alternate history kind of allows us to have some freedom with it as well, you know. So it's definitely one of the themes of the game, yeah.
On that thought as well, what's the kind of maybe the most gruesome thing that we see in that?
Well, I wouldn't want to spoil that, you know, but it's not a game really about trying to be as gruesome or grotesque or nasty as possible. It's a story, it's a setting that you're allowed to explore. You get to explore the world of you know, democracy's death, the world of the new order, what it means for people who live in that world, you know, what it means to be one of the oppressed, but also what it means for the people who kind of thrive in that environment. So that's very much what the game is to us as well. It's not just simply a shooter, it's much more than that.
So you just mentioned the story there. Can you give me a little bit more detail about what's going on? I mean, BJ is back, obviously, as the main character, and, well, I know what happens, but could you tell people who don't necessarily know what's happened to him?
So BJ starts out in the game in 1946, and something happens that makes him end up in a coma. And he's in a coma for 14 years. So he wakes up in the 1960s and only then realizes that the war is lost, that, you know, every easy answer he had is gone. He's no longer a soldier in an army because that army is destroyed. His country has fallen and democracy has fallen, and there's now a global tyranny from a Nazi empire. So you kind of, as a player, get to explore what that means together with BJ, because he just wakes up himself and he's just starting to discover what all this means. So that's a journey BJ and the player takes on together.
So at the beginning of the demo, we started off in a castle that was kind of Wolfenstein-esque, and then we went on to an asylum that was set in Poland. Is there anywhere else that the game takes us? Are we going to see kind of like the rest of the world under Nazi rule?
This is an important part of the adventure aspect of the game, you know, traveling and exploring different places in the world and seeing what has happened to those parts and what does it mean to be living in those parts of the world. So that's a super important part of the adventure and the story aspect. And you'll be traveling there, you know, by cars and by trains, and you drive cars sometimes, and you get to drive underwater submarine vehicles, kind of, you know, private submarines to explore underwater areas.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. And I noticed in one of the trailers that popped up, there was a little bit where there was a Nazi on the moon planting the swastika up there. Will we get to go and see the moon?
No comment, but we have an area that we've shown before, which is kind of about the Nazi moon landing, because this is an alternate history. So you have a world where the Nazis were the first to the moon and have now kind of conquered the moon as their own.
Okay, so moving away from the moon. And, one thing I noticed about going around the castle at the beginning of this demo was that you could find kind of little secret areas and maybe alternate paths and stuff like that. And I mean, Wolfenstein is known for coming like, you know, really quite cool Easter eggs. You know, for example, there was the Morse code in Wolfenstein 3D that kind of turned out to be a message to VJ. And have you got any cool things like that hidden away for us this time?
Because we love Wolfenstein 3D so much, in a way, this is our tribute to that game. So we're going to have a lot of secret areas that you can find for the people who are explorers. But I've talked a lot about the exploration and the adventure side of the game. And of course, the secrets are part of that. You know, exploring the world, exploring the environments, and you know, understanding more about the story from environmental storytelling. But it's also about exploring, you know, the characters and the story and the history of this new order, the new world.
Okay. And so you guys, so this is being developed by Machine Games. So you are the first developers to kind of touch Wolfenstein since id Software with Wolfenstein 3D. What's it like kind of being the first guys outside of id to kind of take on Wolfenstein? Is there much pressure, or, you know, what's it like?
I think the pressure comes from the want to do Wolfenstein justice. When we started, we went back and looked at not what Wolfenstein 3D is today, but what we remember 20 years ago from playing it as kids, you know, the experience we had then and what that meant. And we tried to kind of take that idea and that notion and feeling and bring that into a 2013 game. So, yeah, we really want to make it justice, but we also want to take Wolfenstein and bring it into the future, bring it into I mean, contemporary times, and make something that we can see as a Machine Games game as well, because we are very passionate about storytelling, about the action-adventure blend that is the kind of games the team at Machine Games have been doing in the past. You know, games like Chronicles of Riddick and The Darkness was something the team did back when they were working at Starbreeze.
Yeah. Well, just having hands-on with a demo, I really think that you've succeeded. I mean, for me, that felt most like Wolfenstein 3D than I have with any other Wolfenstein recently. And I think for me, it really hit the balance between fun and kind of really satisfying shooting action, but then also the kind of darker side of, you know, the Nazi occupation and stuff like that. So yeah, I think you've really kind of nailed it there. So, I mean, that wasn't really a question, but...
I like it. I like it. Keep going.
Fantastic. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to getting my mitts on the full game. So, final question, really easy. When's it out? What's it on?
It's out in 2014 on PC, PS3, PS4, Xbox One, and Xbox 360.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Andreas.
Thank you.